A man steps off a train in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, with nothing to his name. He is in his late 20s, and he has already failed at this twice. 2 candy companies in 2 different cities, both bankrupt. He is so broke he cannot even afford to pay the freight to have his own belongings shipped home to him. Everyone who knows him has written him off as a dreamer who could not make it. His name is Milton Hershey, and inside of 20 years, that finished, penniless man will be one of the richest people in America, the most famous chocolate maker the country has ever produced, and he will use that fortune to build a town with his own name on it and a school for orphan children, because, as he put it, he had once been a poor boy himself. Every food brand we are about to talk about today is some version of that man on that train platform. The giants in your kitchen, the names so big, they feel like they were always there and always will be, were almost never born at all. Behind each one is a person who was one bad week from quitting, one bankruptcy from vanishing, one desperate gamble away from the whole thing ending before it ever started. I have 10 of these stories for you. 10 food giants that almost did not make it. Some of these people clawed all the way to the top. And a few of them, and this is the part that is going to stick with you, handed the whole thing away and died with nothing, while the rest of the world got rich off what they built. Stay with me to the end, because at least one of these is going to break your heart. I'm Kit, I'm obsessed with food, and my dream is to make a living telling the stories behind the food we all eat. If you believe I can do it, smash that subscribe button. Because the stories I love most are not about the food at all. They are about the people. The almost quit, almost broke, almost nobody people who were one moment from giving up, right before the moment that changed everything. If you have been around this channel for a while, you already know one of them. The Colonel, broke at 65, sleeping in his car, with nothing but a chicken recipe and too much stubbornness to quit. You told me you wanted more stories like his, so here are 10 of them. Let's eat. Welcome to Hungry Hungry History. We start with the man from that train platform because his story does not even begin with chocolate. Milton Hershey grew up dirt poor in central Pennsylvania, the son of a father who was a dreamer and a drinker, a boy who went shoeless and hungry and got about a 4th grade education before he had to go to work. He apprenticed to a candy maker, learned the trade, and went out on his own, and that is where the failure started. His first candy company in Philadelphia limped along for 6 years and collapsed. He tried again in New York. That one failed too. He came home to Lancaster with empty pockets and a wrecked name. But in those failed years, he had picked up one priceless secret, learned from a confectioner out in Denver. How to make caramel with fresh milk, the kind that turns soft and melts on your tongue instead of pulling your teeth out. He bet everything on it one more time, and his Lancaster Caramel Company finally hit. Then, at the Chicago World's Fair, he stood watching a German machine making chocolate, and something clicked. He sold the Caramel Company for $1 million and poured all of it into a wild idea, making milk chocolate cheap enough that ordinary people, not just the rich, could afford a bar. That idea is the Hershey bar. And then he did the thing that gets me every time. He built a whole town for his workers, with homes and schools and a park. And he and his wife, who could not have children of their own, founded a school for orphan boys and later left his whole chocolate fortune to it. A man who failed twice and came home with nothing ended up feeding the country chocolate and raising thousands of kids who had no one. Not bad for the guy everybody wrote off. Now the story turns dark. It stays back in the 1800s in Atlanta, Georgia. Picture a man who should have everything going for him. John Pemberton is a trained pharmacist, a skilled chemist, a respected man. Then the Civil War comes. In one of the last battles of that war, Pemberton takes a slashing saber wound across the chest, and like thousands of wounded veterans, he is given morphine for the pain. He never gets off it. The rest of his life becomes a quiet war against an addiction he cannot beat. So Pemberton, the chemist, starts mixing things, hunting for a cure for his own habit, a tonic that might undo what the morphine had done. He lands on a syrup made from coca leaf and cola nut, sweet and fizzy and sold at the soda fountain as a health drink. He calls it Coca-Cola. Sit with that for a second. The most recognized product on planet Earth started as one broke, sick man trying to medicine his way out of pain. But Pemberton is dying now, stomach cancer, and desperate for cash, and he does not believe the fizzy stuff has much of a future. So he sells it off, piece by piece, to a handful of partners, for almost nothing, a few $100s here and there. He dies in 1888, still addicted, broke, with no stake left in the drink he invented. And here is the gut punch. They say that on the day of his funeral, every drugstore in Atlanta closed in his honor, and not a single glass of Coca-Cola was poured in the whole city. One last quiet day before the thing he gave away for pocket change went on to make other men some of the richest in the world. And if you think that was a one-off, the man who invented Coke's biggest rival died almost the exact same way. Down in New Bern, North Carolina, another pharmacist, Caleb Bradham, mixed up his own fizzy drink at his drugstore fountain in the 1890s. He called it Pepsi, and for a while he was rich, with hundreds of bottlers across the country. Then came the gamble that wrecked him. During the First World War, sugar prices went wild, and Bradham, certain they would keep climbing, bought a mountain of sugar at the very top of the market, around 28 cents a pound. Prices did not climb. They crashed down to a few cents, and he was left holding a fortune in overpriced sugar for a drink he still sold for a nickel. Pepsi went bankrupt in 1923. Bradham walked away, went back to his little drugstore, and died years later, never knowing his brand would one day be a giant. And Pepsi almost did not survive him. It went bankrupt a second time during the Great Depression. Here's the part I love. The reason modern Pepsi exists at all is a man named Charles Guth, who ran a candy company with soda fountains. Guth asked Coca-Cola for a discount on their syrup. Coke told him no, so out of pure spite, Guth bought up bankrupt little Pepsi, put it in his fountains instead of Coke, and built it into the only true rival Coca-Cola would ever have. The drink that died twice was saved by a grudge over a discount. Let's go to Pittsburgh, and a name that is on a bottle in your fridge right now. Heinz. Before the 57 varieties, before the ketchup empire, there's a young man named Henry Heinz who built a company selling horseradish and pickles, and then watched it die. The financial panic of the 1870s dragged his business under, and in December of 1875, Henry Heinz was bankrupt and broken. We know from his own writing that he spent that whole month bedridden, sunk in a depression so deep that some days he could not get out of bed. He was 31 years old, and he believed he had failed his family and disgraced his name. But on New Year's Day, he got up, called the family together, and made a plan. Because his own name was now mud, the new company had to be put in his wife's and his relatives' names while he worked it on salary. He clawed it back, dish by dish, jar by jar, and he made himself one promise that tells you everything about the man. He vowed to pay back every dollar the failed company had owed, even though the bankruptcy had legally erased the debt. It took him 5 years, but he did it. That second company became the H.J. Heinz, you know, the ketchup on your fries, the beans, the pickles, a brand on tables in 100 countries. The man behind it spent a Christmas unable to climb out of bed, certain his life was over. Sometimes, the lowest month of a person's life is the foundation everything else gets built on. Time for one that will make you wince. Every chocolate chip cookie you have ever eaten traces back to one woman, and to one of the worst business deals in food history. In the 1930s, Ruth Wakefield ran an inn called the Toll House in Whitman, Massachusetts, and she was known far and wide for her desserts. One day, she chopped up a bar of Nestle chocolate and dropped the pieces into her cookie dough, expecting them to melt and spread. They did not. They held their shape, soft little pockets of chocolate in a warm, buttery cookie. She had invented the chocolate chip cookie, and it became a sensation. Word spread, and sales of Nestle's chocolate bars shot up because everybody was buying them to chop into Wakefield's cookie. So Nestle came to her with a deal. They would print her recipe right on the package and use the Toll House name. And in exchange for the rights to the most popular cookie in American history, Ruth Wakefield got, by most accounts, $1 and a lifetime supply of chocolate. $1. She later said she was not even sure she ever got the dollar. Now, to be fair, she got chocolate for life and some consulting work out of it, and she seemed at peace with the deal. But think about the scale. That recipe has sold an unimaginable mountain of chocolate chips for almost 100 years, and it is still printed on the yellow bag today. The woman who invented it traded it for a single dollar bill she may never have been handed. The next time you bake a batch, pour one out for Ruth. Here is one that should give every late bloomer some hope. In 1954, a 52-year-old man is driving around the country in a tired Cadillac, selling milkshake machines. His name is Ray Kroc, and by any normal measure, his life has not worked out. He has been hustling one product or another for 30 years. His health is failing, arthritis, diabetes. His marriage is falling apart. He is, more or less, broke. Most men in his shoes are counting down the days to retirement. Then a strange order comes in. A little burger stand way out in San Bernardino, California, run by two brothers named McDonald, wants 8 of his milkshake machines at once. 8. Nobody orders 8. Kroc has to see this place for himself. What he finds stops him cold. A spotless kitchen running like a machine, a tiny menu, burgers and fries handed over in seconds for cheap. The brothers have cracked something special, and they do not see how big it could get. Kroc does. He talks his way into becoming their franchise man. It was not smooth, and he nearly ran out of money in those early years before the thing found its footing. But that 52-year-old mixer salesman built McDonald's into the biggest restaurant company the world has ever seen. He said it best himself, years later. He was an overnight success, sure, but it had taken him about 30 years of long, hard nights to get there. So if you feel like you're running late in life, remember the broke guy with the milkshake machines. This next one has a detail so painful, I still cannot get over it. Tom Monaghan's father died when he was 4, and his mother could not raise him. So Tom spent much of his childhood in an orphanage run by nuns and bounced through foster homes. He dreamed of becoming an architect. To pay for school in 1960, he and his brother borrowed about $900 and bought a failing little pizza shop in Ypsilanti, Michigan, near the University of Michigan. The work was brutal, 100-hour weeks, and within about 8 months, his brother had had enough and wanted out. So they made a trade. The brother handed over his half of the pizza shop, and in return, he took the used Volkswagen Beetle they had been using to deliver the pizzas. Let that sink in. He traded away half of what became Domino's pizza for a beat-up car. That half would one day have been worth something like $500 million. And Tom, the orphan kid left holding the whole thing, did not exactly sail to the top. He lived off burnt pizzas and stale popcorn. He lost his own home. A fire tore through his main store, and a reckless expansion nearly drove the company into total bankruptcy and right out of his hands. He clawed it back, perfected fast delivery, and turned that one shop into a global empire of thousands of stores. From an orphanage to a Volkswagen to the top of the pizza world. And somewhere out there is a brother who who probably hopes nobody ever brings up that car. Not every one of these has a happy ending, and this one stings. Wally Amos was a trailblazer, the first black talent agent at the William Morris Agency, the man who signed Simon and Garfunkel. On the side, he baked chocolate chip cookies from his aunt's recipe and handed them out to clients. They were so good that in 1975 he opened a cookie shop on Sunset Boulevard, threw a celebrity launch party, and Famous Amos was born, the first gourmet chocolate chip cookie brand in the country. His face, the straw hat, and the warm smile was the whole brand, and then it slipped away from him. The cookies took off faster than he could manage the business. The losses piled up, and to keep it alive, he sold off pieces of the company again and again to investor after investor. Each sale took a little more control away, until Wally Amos owned none of it. And here is the cruel twist. When the company changed hands, the new owners owned the name. Famous Amos was him, his name, his face, and he lost the legal right to use either one to sell a cookie. He could not even put his own name on his own product anymore. He started over with new brands under different names, because his own was off limits. The trailblazer who built the first famous cookie ended up locked out of his own legend. So when you grab that little bag at the store, know that there was a real Amos, and the famous part cost him just about everything he had. Now, back to a man who bet everything on something everyone else called garbage. Hamdi Ulukaya grew up on a dairy farm in eastern Turkey, in a Kurdish shepherd family, and he came to America with almost nothing, to learn English and figure out a life. He started a tiny feta cheese operation, and one day a piece of junk mail crossed his desk, a flyer advertising a fully equipped yogurt plant for sale. It was a 90-year-old factory that Kraft was shutting down and desperate to dump. He threw the flyer in the trash. Then, half an hour later, he fished it back out. Everyone told him he was crazy. His own lawyer told him not to do it. He bought the dead factory anyway, with a small government-backed loan, far more than he had any business borrowing. The first board meeting was him and 5 workers he had hired back from the old plant, standing in a silent, shut-down building. He has described it like a cemetery. The machine still, the lights off. He spent 2 lonely years just perfecting the recipe, not sure he would make it to the next payment. That dead factory is now Chobani, the best-selling yogurt in America. Ulukaya became a billionaire, and then he did something almost unheard of. He handed out a chunk of the company, shares worth a fortune, to his employees, the same kind of workers who had stood with him in that empty plant. An immigrant pulled a thrown-away factory out of the grave and turned it into an empire, then made sure the people who built it with him got a real piece of it. Let's end on a fight, the best David and Goliath story in food. In 1978, 2 childhood friends, Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield, wanted to open a food shop in a college town, Burlington, Vermont. They thought about bagels, but the equipment was too pricey, so they went with ice cream instead, and they learned how to make it from a $5 mail order course. Their first shop was a renovated gas station. One of them, Ben, has almost no sense of smell, so he leaned on texture and big chunks to make the ice cream interesting. And that is the reason Ben & Jerry's is loaded with giant chunks to this day. The little Vermont company got popular, started shipping pints, and reached Boston. And that is when the giant noticed them. Häagen-Dazs, owned at the time by the food conglomerate Pillsbury, leaned on distributors to keep Ben & Jerry's off the shelves. 2 hippies from a gas station could not outspend a corporate giant in court, and they knew it, so they got clever instead. They launched a campaign built on one perfect line, printed right on their pint lids. What is the doughboy afraid of? Aimed straight at the Pillsbury doughboy. They put a phone hotline on the cartons, flew banners over stadiums, and Jerry personally picketed Pillsbury headquarters, one man with a sign. The public ate it up, the press piled on, and the giant backed down. A two-man ice cream shop born in a gas station stared down $1 billion conglomerate and won, armed with nothing but chunky ice cream and one very good joke. 10 giants, and not one of them was inevitable. Everyone came down to a person who had every reason to quit and did not. So if you have got a dream you almost walked away from, let that be your sign. Now, where do we go next? You get two options. Option 1, we hunt down the food giant capital of America, one single state that pumped out more household name brands than anywhere else in the country, 2 warring cereal kings born in the very same small town, 2 of the 3 biggest pizza chains, the baby food in half the nurseries in the land. That state is Michigan, and it has no business being this stacked. Option 2, the food feuds, the all-out wars between the giants, Coke against Pepsi, Hershey against Mars, the spies and the sabotage, and the billion-dollar grudges playing out in your grocery aisle. So tell me in the comments, if you want the food giant state, type Michigan. If you want the food wars, type feuds. Loudest side wins. And that is the next video I shoot. And do me a favor and hit subscribe before you go, so you are around when it lands. I'm going to go eat something. Stay hungry, hungry, hungry,